What is good, team? Welcome back to the UK. We're officially back in London for like the next few weeks until we decide to go away again. But if you guys have been following along on the vlogs and this improvement phase, we were just in Berlin, so had some cool sessions down at the Bunker Gym in Berlin, which is awesome. Lots of cool nostalgic bodybuilding stuff happening there. But we're back in London for the next little while. So back at our home gym, so to speak, Muscleworks here in Bethnal Green. And there's some cool new bits of equipment that we're going to try out this week. So we'll have some fun with training. But back to normal routine, back to schedule. We're about to kick off this growth phase. So food's coming up. All the fun stuff starts happening now as we make improvements into the next season. So kicking off today's session, lower body day one. Yes, lower body day one, our primary squat day. So kicking off hamstring curls first, and then we'll move on to our squat compounds, some quad isolations, and some more fun stuff in the back end of the session. But 2 working sets here, 8 to 12 reps. Okay, hamstring curls done. Onto our hips free in space squat pattern. So this is what we had in rotation the first couple of weeks of this block, the Squat Pro, which is awesome. It's kind of like hybrid between like a pendulum squat and like a Smith machine squat. A little bit heavier this time, so gone a pretty even resistance profile. So 2 plates in the mid or short and 2 plates in the lengthened or mid. So it's kind of pretty even throughout. I suppose just in terms of loading profile, I like doing it that way. Especially someone with adductor like predisposition to injury. Not loading it too lengthened is probably nice for me. It doesn't push it too hard in the bottom position. And then I suppose not loading it too hard in the short position where it's hardest to stand up, where the movement is actually hardest, is probably a good thing too. So pretty even is always the way to go. 2 working sets, 6 to 8 reps. So this is our hardest like squat movement of the session. So from a loading perspective, it makes sense to maybe do it first in the workout or closer to the start where we're pretty fresh. We've just done hamstring, so there's no carryover in fatigue into that squat pattern, so we can hit it pretty fresh. And I'd probably argue that it does help lubricate the joints a little bit, get some blood into the tissues that we're about to train. So it probably makes your squat feel a little bit better. You feel a little bit more warmed up. But this will be my first working set. It's very hot today, so we'll have a crack, see how we feel, but aiming for around 6 to 8 reps here. Oh, that's heavy. That felt good. So that's my 2 sets done there. That's my heavy multi-joint compound out of the way. And I suppose a good point to bring up, especially around heavy lifting or multi-joint compound movements, I think a lot of people get caught in the trap of like trying to lift as heavy as possible. And it's almost, I won't say the opposite, but we almost want to use strategies that limit load exposure to an extent for the purpose of bodybuilding. The objective is to not be as strong as humanly possible. When you're on stage, the objective is to be as muscular as humanly possible. And you don't need to do that in the presence of really heavy loads. And I would argue that there is an inherent drawback to lifting really, really heavy, the bigger and the stronger you get, because there's just an increased risk of, like, number one, injury, number two, fatigue. So if we can train the muscles through a full range of motion, slow controlled eccentric, nice deep pauses in the stretch position, which arguably is better for hypertrophy, it's probably going to lead to overall better muscle growth in the long term and reduce risk of injury. So as a primary strategy for building muscle, don't lift as heavy as you possibly can using shitty technique, momentum, no pauses, fast dropping into the whole eccentric type setups. Think about being slow, controlled, and really intentional with your movement patterns. Now onto our second quad compound movement, this one obviously being a bit more braced, more machine compound, if you will, leg press. So a big point that I want to bring up with leg press, it is arguably one of the best quad builders you could use in the gym, but so many people fuck it up. It's really not about how heavy you lift, it's really about the quality of your reps and having enough load that has you within a close proximity to failure, somewhere in that 5 to 30 rep range. So for me, all I've done this week is I've taken a 20 kilo load jump, but I'm aiming to maintain the level of execution and the integrity of my reps in order to give all of the stimulus to my quads, as opposed to just using other stuff, using bullshit technique just to lift heavier, because it's really not working me closer towards my goals. So you guys will notice when I do this, you'll notice my setup is very quad biased. I'm using quite a narrow stance. I'm coming all the way down. I'm stretching, I'm pausing in the bottom, and I'm not spending too much time at the top where I'm just increasing total fatigue in order to just do more reps. I want effective reps to give maximum stimulus to the quads. Oh yeah, buddy.
Press open your head. Nice. You, like that. Let it follow. Oh, that's good. That's good. What's that? Let's go. Yeah, let's go.
Mother of God. All right, so on to the last hard part of this session, back extension. So we've done all of our main movements. This is kind of like the icing on the cake. So because this is more of a quad dominant session, we kind of have the hamstring or hinge bias stuff last. We finished the quad stuff with the split squat, Bulgarian split squat. I don't think there's a harder exercise on planet Earth than Bulgarian split squats. They are absolutely killer. But one set here, 10 to 15 reps. Really trying to isolate my hamstrings on this, more so, not necessarily being glute biased. It's still a hinge exercise, still gonna train the glutes, but I'm really trying to keep my knees locked, really trying to emphasize the hamstrings. Not so much in the stretch, but more in the contracted position. But these are really hard. I find these so difficult, so not too much load here, just enough to really get a good meaningful contraction and keep my lower back out of it, to be honest, as well. Which I find a lot of people with back extensions complain about lower back pain or feeling their lower back. I mean, the name kind of makes it a little difficult. It's a back extension, but it's more so machine hip extension. So we're really just trying to isolate those hinge muscles, hamstring, glutes. A little bit of lower back and erectors too will come into play, but we're really trying to minimize that. The reason you have small calves is because you don't know how to train them properly. How most people train their calves is with a really poor range of motion, lots of momentum, and bending their knees. And what we know about calves specifically is they contribute meaningfully to knee flexion. So by bending your knees when you're doing any calf raises, you're actively shortening the calves, which gives them less stimulus and overall development. So if you want to get the most out of your calf training, reduce the load, increase the range of motion, spend a large amount of time in the deep stretch position, and keep your freaking knees straight. Bending your knees means you can lift heavier, but you're putting less stimulus to the calves. So drop the ego, learn how to train your calves properly, and that will actually help you grow calves. All right, guys, that is us done. Legs wrapped up for another week. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Lots of educational content. Hopefully now that we have a bit more brain function coming out of the back of prep. So as always, guys, if you get a lot of value from this content, it means the world to me. If you like, comment, share, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you probably later in the week. We'll probably try and get some more vlogs out this week now they're a bit more static back home in our regular gym for some more regular content. But until next time, guys, peace.